Unit 6. Tell me, what's it like? What like? Comparatives and superlatives, synonyms and antonyms. طلاب احنا ذاكرين سابقا what like. For example, يعني when somebody asks you what is Paris like, الانسر الجواب ما يكون بكلمة like. يعني what's Paris like, I must answer it's wonderful, it's wonderful, or it's nice. You must not say it is like wonderful. So the word like does not come in the answer when somebody asks you about, for example, what's that person like, or what is she like, or what is Paris like. You answer he's nice, she's wonderful, or Paris is wonderful. So you do not put the word like in the answer. We have comparative and superlative adjectives. Form. Look at the chart. Short adjective. Here is the short adjective, comparative of it, and superlative. Short adjectives, for example, cheap, comparative, cheaper, and superlative, cheapest. Small, smaller, smallest. But big, you double the G, you double the last, the consonant, because there is a vowel before this letter. Big, bigger, and biggest. Adjectives that end in Y. There are some adjectives that end with ny. For example, funny, funnier, and funniest. Y becomes I, and you add er for the comparative and est for the superlative. Early, earlier, the same as funny. Earliest, heavy, heavier, and heaviest. Adjectives with 2 syllables or more. The adjective here with 2 syllables. Care and full. Boring, expensive, interesting. So you use for the comparative with the adjectives that have 2 syllables or more. More careful, most careful. You use more for the comparative before the adjective, and most for the superlative before the adjective. Boring, more. Boring here is wrong because the word is boring, not buying. More boring, most boring. Expensive, more expensive, most expensive. Interesting, more interesting, and most interesting, because these adjectives are with 2 syllables or more. You use more for the comparative before the adjective, and most for the superlative adjective. Irregular adjectives. We have irregular, يعني غير قياسية أو شاذة. For example, far, you do not say farther or farthest. No. The correct adjective for the comparative, further or furthest, and you can say farther and furthest. Good becomes better for the comparative and superlative, best. Bad becomes worse for the comparative and worst for the superlative. Short adjectives with 1 vowel and 1 consonant. Double the consonant, as I said with the adjective big. For example, hot, hotter, hottest. It is a short adjective, 1 vowel and 1 consonant. We double the consonant here. Hotter, hottest. Fat, fatter, fattest. Than is often used after a comparative adjective. We use than after a comparative adjective, not a superlative adjective. For example, I'm younger than. Here, the adjective younger is a comparative adjective. Comparative adjective. We use than after it. Barbara's more intelligent than Sarah or Sarah. So we used than after the comparative adjective, more intelligent. Much can come before the comparative for what to give emphasis. You can use much, تستخدمون المuch before قبل ال comparative adjective لإعطاء التأكيد أو للتأكيد, to give emphasis. For example, she's much nicer than her sister. هنا أعطينا تأكيد, يعني واحد من يقول much nicer than, so here we use much for emphasis. Is Tokyo much more modern than London? Also here much is for emphasis when used before the comparative adjective. The is used before superlative adjectives, لكن the تستعمل قبل superlative adjectives. For example, he's the funniest. Here is the superlative adjective, funniest. So we use the before the superlative adjectives. He's the funniest boy in the class. And which is the tallest? Here is the superlative adjective, tallest, and you use the before it. Which is the tallest building in the world? Use of the comparative adjective here is to compare one thing or person or action with another. For example, she's taller than me. We compared a person with a person. She's taller than me. London's more expensive than Rome. We compared London to Rome. So we used a comparative adjective. We use superlatives, that is, we mean superlative adjectives, to compare somebody or something with the whole group, not with one thing, with the whole group. For example, she's the tallest in the class. You compared her with the whole class. It is the most expensive hotel in the world. We compared this hotel with other hotels in the world. So here we use superlatives to compare somebody or something with the whole group. As and an adjective, and then we use as, shows that something is the same or equal. When we say Jim's as tall as, here we use the adjective tall. Jim's as tall as Peter, we say that Jim is equal to Peter. That is, Jim is tall as Peter, so he's the same or equal to Peter. I'm as worried as you are. We are comparing I with you. That is, here is something that is same or equal. I am as worried as you. أنا قلق مثلك. So something here is equal or the same. Not as or so. Adjective as shows that something isn't the same or equal. يعني هاي opposite of this. Not as or so. And here is the adjective as shows that something isn't the same. يعني شيء غير متساوي. For example, she isn't as tall as her mother. يعني بالطول هي مو بقياس أمها, or not the same as her mother. My car wasn't so expensive as yours. My car wasn't so expensive. تلاحظون هنا استخدمنا so adjective as, so adjective as. So we are saying here that something is not the same or equal. Big, bigger, biggest, comparative and superlatives. What are the comparative and superlative forms of the following? Adjectives, what are the rules? يعني ذكرت بالسلايدات السابقة the rules. Smaller, small, smaller, smallest, cold, colder, coldest, near, nearer, nearest, bigger, biggest, hotter, hottest, wet, wetter, wettest. لكن هنا we double the last letter. We double the last letter. Busy, busier, IER تصير busiest, IEST. Noisier, noisiest, the same. Drier, driest. هاي هنا الواي تنحذف ونخلي IER for comparative and IEST for the superlative. beautiful, interesting and exciting. هاي الwords more than one syllable, more than two syllables, sorry, two syllables or more. فتصير more beautiful, most beautiful, more interesting, most interesting, more exciting, most exciting. These adjectives are irregular. ذكرناها. What are the comparative and superlative forms? Far, farther, farthest, good, better, best, and bad, worse, worst. Adjectives also combine with as. هنا نخلي adjective بين ال as. Melbourne isn't as cosmopolitan as Chicago. هنا هاي cosmopolitan إذا تذكروها أخذناها بالbeginner means يعني عالمية أو دولية. It is an adjective, so we used an adjective between as. Match the verbs and nouns. Many of them are to do with money. Here we have verbs and here we have the nouns. Match the verb buy with its noun. We say buy يعني يشتري. We say buy stocks and shares. buy stocks and shares يعني هنا أسهم وأوراق مالية. يشتري الأسهم والأوراق المالية. buy stocks and shares. spoil يعني يدلل. spoil a child. spoil a child. So buy stocks and shares, spoil a child. Wear ragged clothes. wear ragged clothes. ragged هنا rag هي تجي من معنى خشنة، لكن هنا wear ragged clothes يعني أما يعني ملابس خشنة أو ملابس ممزقة. wear يلبس ragged clothes. open a bank account. يفتح حساب مصرفي. open a bank account. live in poverty يعني يعيش في الفقر. live in poverty هذا noun. live in poverty. inherit يعني يرث. inherit a lot of money from someone. يرث مبلغ يعني من المال from someone. inherit a lot of money from someone. make a will يعني يعمل وصية. make a will هنا a will هنا وصية يعني make a will. arrest a thief يعني يقبض على لص. arrest a thief. invest يعني يستثمر. invest a lot of money in something. invest a lot of money in something. amputate a leg يعني يبتر. amputate a leg. vocabulary and pronunciation. We have synonyms and antonyms. السينونيمز معناها المرادفات، الكلمات الشبيهة. والانتونيمز معناها الأوبوزيتس، الكلمات المعاكسة أو الأضداد. First we have synonyms. We often use synonyms in conversation. Why? Because we don't want to repeat words. نستخدم السينونيم حتى ما نعيد الكلمات نفسها. For example, here, it's a lovely day today. Here the word lovely. It's a lovely day today. Yes, it's really beautiful. Yes, it's really beautiful. هنا هذا الشخص ما راد يعيد كلمة lovely. يعني ممكن كان يقول yes, it's really lovely. لكن استخدم غير synonym because he doesn't want to repeat the word. Yes, it's really beautiful. So, lovely is the synonym of beautiful and beautiful is the synonym of lovely. يعني الكلمات المتشابهة أو المرادفة. يعني lovely هو المرادف for beautiful and beautiful المرادف for lovely. Complete the conversations using an adjective of similar meaning from the box. هنا نستخدم اكو adjective في هذه الجمل، ونستخدم وحده من الادجكتيفز هي الصفات اللي هي synonym مرادف للادجكتيف الموجوده بالجمله. Number 1 Mary's family is very rich. هنا الادجكتيف rich. Mary's family is very rich. Well, I knew her uncle was very. You must use an adjective from the box, a synonym for the adjective rich. So the synonym of rich is wealthy. Well, I knew her uncle was very wealthy. Wealthy is the synonym يعني المرادف of rich. Look at all these new buildings here. The adjective is new. Yes, Paris is much more modern. Modern is the synonym of new. Modern than I expected. Wasn't that film wonderful? Wonderful. Here the adjective is wonderful. Yes, it was brilliant. Brilliant is the synonym of wonderful. Number 4. George doesn't earn much money, but he's so kind. Here the adjective is kind. So we must use a synonym from the box for the adjective kind. He is, isn't he? He's one of the most generous people I know. So the adjective generous is the synonym of kind. يعني مرادف kind. Number 5. Anne's bedroom's really untidy again. Here the adjective is untidy. Sorry. Is it? I told her it was messy. The synonym المرادف للadjective untidy is messy. I told her it was messy yesterday and she promised to clean it. Number 6. I am bored with this lesson. Here the adjective is bored. I'm bored with this lesson. I know I'm really fed up. I'm really fed up. So the synonym of bored is fed up, and vice versa, the synonym of fed up is bored. Here we have the antonyms, يعني الopposites, الأضداد. We can also use antonyms in conversation to avoid repeating words. Also the same as synonym, we do not want to repeat the words. What an awful meal. Here the adjective is awful. She answered, yes, it wasn't very nice. Was it? So nice is the antonym of awful. عكس أو opposite of awful. Match the following adjectives with their two opposites in exercise 1. هذا exercise 1. So you match the antonyms with their opposites in exercise 1. هنا كلمة interested بexercise 1 اللي يريدون يعني الopposites، يريدون الانtonym of interested. In exercise 1 two antonyms. Interested the antonyms يعني opposites، الأضداد المعاكس. Interested, the opposite of interested is bored and fed up. The antonyms are bored and fed up. The antonyms of horrible, wonderful, brilliant. Wonderful, brilliant. The antonyms of mean, kind, generous. Kind, generous. The antonym of old, new, modern. New, modern. The antonym of poor, rich, wealthy. Rich, wealthy. The antonym of tidy, untidy. Here we use the negative prefix. Untidy and messy. Untidy and messy. Sometimes it is more polite to use not very and an opposite adjective. إذا يعني نستخدم للpoliteness نصير يعني ألطف بالكلام. إيش نستخدم not very والopposite adjective. For example, Tom's so short. Tom's so short. نريد نقول إنه توم كلش قصير. We want to be more polite. So we use not very and an opposite adjective. Well, he's not very tall. استخدمنا not very والopposite الانtonym of short. استخدمنا opposite of short. Not very and then tall, which is the opposite of short. He always wears such dirty clothes. We want to be more polite. We say they certainly aren't very clean. We used not very, and the opposite of or the antonym of dirty, which is clean. So reply to these sentences. We want to be more polite. Be more polite. Number 1. London's such an expensive city. يعني هاي القاعدة موجودة. You use not very and the opposite of the adjective, the antonym of the adjective. So you say London's, or it is not very cheap. London is not very cheap. استخدمنا not very وعكس الصفة المعاكسة اللي هي cheap. فتصير London is not very cheap. Paul and Sue are so mean. We must use not very and the opposite or the antonym of the adjective mean. You say Paul and Sue are certainly or are not very generous. They are not very generous. Number 3. Their house is always so messy. You say their house is not very tidy. Tidy عكس messy. واستخدمنا not very. Their house is not very tidy. Number 4. Their children are so noisy. You say their children are not very quiet. Quiet. Quiet هنا تكتبوها Q-U-I-E-T يعني هادئين أو هادئ. فاستخدمنا not very واستخدمنا الانtonym or the opposite adjective of noisy. They are not very quiet. Number 5. John looks so miserable. John looks so miserable. He's not very عكس miserable شنو؟ He's not very happy. استخدمنا not very and happy to be more polite. He's not very happy. Number 6. His sister is so stupid. It is rude to say this. So if we want to be more polite, we use not very and the opposite or the antonym of stupid. She's or his sister is not very clever. His sister is not very clever. Thank you.